the synchrony of the multiple intangible fields of the education. Department of Architecture, National Technical University of Athens. Ifigenia Mari, Architect, Assistant Professor. George Parmenidis, Architect, Emeritus Professor. Χρυσούλα Karadima, Architect, PhD Candidate, and Angeliki Sofia Mandikou, Architect, PhD Candidate. This research presents the educational method for the design course on small-scale constructions, spring semester of the third year at the School of Architecture NTUA for the academic years 2020-2021 and propose, as an answer to the preliminary questions, a meeting of trainers and trainees in a synchrony of multiple intangible educational spaces, knowledge fields. Digital design programs dominate contemporary educational process for trainees, and for trainers too. How knowledge and experience of digital design and our digital existence on social media is transformed into an educational methodology and practice about design itself. Methodological tools of the digital attributes of the course were combining multiple different sources of information, keeping a record for the design process and constant reference to it, general participation in the monitoring of the process, and the possibility of coexisting different digital lab rooms offering multiple specialization. The whole educational procedure can be described by the graph. The course was organized in 3 phases. First phase, the initial conception of the idea of each group. Second phase, project elaboration. And third phase, project communication, while intermediate presentations with external guests, jury, made them distinct. The process of transition from collective to personalized and from generic to specific characterized each phase. The first phase was held in the Digital Joint Meeting Room Special Design Lab, organized through 3 individual exercises to process the diagrammatic development of thought. The second and third phase, in addition to the joint Special Design Lab, were structured by 3 individual laboratories: geometry, structural, and construction, which operated separately in their digital rooms simultaneously by type and evolution of each student group. Keeping up a record of the design production of each group unveiled the restoring of lost information and making the production time nonlinear. Thus, the record compilation of each learner, his continuous exposure to all trainees, and his constant reference to this archive made up the context for the evolution and evaluation of their thoughts. It was the context for the consistency evaluation of the processed information multitude of each design object. Applying this procedure, 2 main educational purposes were satisfied. The first educational purpose, the insertion of diagrammatic thinking in the special design methodology, allows the maximum flexibility in the further elaboration of the project and in the introduction or integration of multiple description logics, either predictable or unpredictable. And the second educational purpose, the simultaneous treatment of different approaches to the project favors the understanding of the coordinating role of the architectural study in a project that requires the synergy of multiple design logics: structural engineer, mechanical engineer, luminaire, planter, builder, financier. All these dissimilar logics are coordinated by the architect at the topological field of diagrammatic thinking. At the initial phase, for the conception of the idea with the 3 exercises, the trainees were watching the gradual formation of their thoughts through the diagrammatic representation of spatial relations. The first exercise was about a field model to identify diagrammatically the dynamic field of activities that could be developed in the specific material field. According to a frame for the design program, they distinguish the material characteristics of the field. The second exercise was about the making of the model of the first exercise, dividing the material field by the differences between the activities of the dynamic field that would be intentionally developed, the genre of use, space extension, and time duration. The third exercise was about a model of the area using as background the initial principles of organization elaborated in the second exercise, delineating individual areas of activity. The boundaries of social spaces would be related to the boundaries of the construction structure, embodying it to the same design ideology. Trainees' projects were developed simultaneously, presented and discussed in the digital joint meeting room of the Spatial Design Lab, so that the multiplicity of possible approaches was a common knowledge. The diagram, as a means for the description of relations, supports the conception of space as a dynamic field of relational transformations. By the diagrammatic description of the relations that each group had the intention to prescribe for their special project, each group had its own starting point. Further elaboration and specification of the relations have guided towards the idiosyncrasy of each project, and the initial diagram was its signature. The insertion of diagrammatic thinking in the spatial design methodology allows the maximum flexibility in the further elaboration of the project and in the introduction, integration of multiple description logics, either predictable or unpredictable. At the second phase, for the project elaboration, the trainees saw the gradual formation of their abilities to conduct their project through dissimilar description logics. Through the difference of the description logics, the trainees explored a series of alternative approaches on the main diagrams of the first phase. A reference point to keep the fidelity to the initial diagram was the characteristic title of each project, such as Framing the Phasmatic, Stop Thinking, See and Listen, Emerging Grid, Athens Telescope, Grid Trimming. At the third phase, the communication of the project was based on the presentation of its consistency according to the record of the design procedure. At the second and third phase, the trainees were continuously changing their positions and views, passing through different cognitive rooms, workshops of spatial design, geometric applications, structural mechanics, digital construction. The context that could control and evaluate their cognitive tour was the record of their own concept transformations, starting from the initial diagram and certifying the fidelity of the alternative approaches to their initial intentions. Visualizing the results with a multiple relational diagram, a cloud of information is designed, which is recognized as a common place of recording a collective practice and the place or places of its multiple readings or forms. The simultaneous treatment of different approaches to the project favors the understanding of the coordinating role of the architectural study in a project that requires the synergy of multiple design logics: structural engineer, mechanical engineer, luminaire, planter, builder, financier. All these dissimilar logics are coordinated by the architect at the topological field of diagrammatic thinking. The diagrammatical description of relations and the reference to criteria on the fidelity to them through an archive of alternative approaches permits unlimited transformations of the project, maintaining, though, the basic similarity with the initial conception. Thank you.